Hello, product people. Welcome to the Product for Product podcast, hosted by Matt Green, data advocate and product manager, and Masha Mikanovsky, product leader and author. Our goal is to serve the product community by helping you find products that can help make your work in product management easier. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Product for Product podcast.
Welcome back. On today's episode, Michelle and I are speaking with investor, founder, and product leader Ravi Metha. We'll dive into his company Outpace and how the Product Competency Toolkit can help your work as a product manager and help you take it to the next level. So let's hop in. How you doing, Ravi?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Pleasure to have you. Hey, Michelle.
Hey, Matt. Hey, Ravi. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'm very happy to have you here. I've been following you for a while now. I don't even know how many years, but I love everything that you are posting out there and all the resources and whatever you're working on. So it's really a pleasure to finally have you on the show.
Thanks so much for inviting me. It's great to be here.
Of course. So tell us a bit about yourself. You know, where you're coming from, what your background, and where you are at today.
Yeah, so I've been a lifelong product manager and product leader. I got my start really early with tech. My dad brought home a computer when I was 9, and there wasn't much to do back then other than to learn how to code. There weren't even that many different games, so I learned how to code. I started making games. I really fell in love with it. I did that all throughout high school. And then college, I dropped out of college for a little bit to run a game company full time. And then I went to college for engineering. So I thought I'd become a software developer. I graduated during the first Web 1.0 bubble, and there were lots of opportunities, but I had a really interesting conversation when I went to visit Microsoft. It was a lot less about code, a lot more about specs and customers and functional requirements. And I realized about halfway through the conversation that I got put in the wrong interviews. I was supposed to be in software engineering interviews, and I was actually in product manager interviews. And the recruiter asked me, do you want to stay doing product manager interviews, or do you want to go back and come back tomorrow for software engineer interviews? I said, I'll stay during the product manager interviews. I got an offer to join Microsoft as a PM, and, I've been in product ever since, and I absolutely love it. So throughout my career, I've mostly focused on two things. One is consumer. So I really love working on products that touch everyday people's lives. And the second one is social. So pretty much everything that I've worked on has brought people together in some way around a use case. I've done pure play social work at Facebook. I've also led the consumer product team at TripAdvisor, a lot of which had to do with how do you connect travelers together. I spent my time at Microsoft mostly focused on Xbox Live, so thinking about where multiplayer and internet-enabled gaming is going. And then more recently with Outpace, we're focused on how do you connect people with really great coaches to help them level up. It sort of plays on a theme of thinking about the most important relationships in people's lives and really helping to make those better. And one of the key product roles I've had is I was the chief product officer at Tinder, where I did a lot of thinking about what the future of dating and social discovery looks like.
Nice. So
That's
really
awesome.
Very eventful career, and I'm sure more in the future. And it's funny to hear that. How did you get to product management?
It's a happy accident.
That's a very happy accident. I also, my background is in software development, but it took me 20 years from the time that I started software development to the time I moved to product management, because I realized, oh, really, that's what I love doing, and that's what I was doing a lot of the times. But yeah, but I wasn't in the right place at the right time. That's the thing.
So what prompted you? How did you make the transition from engineering to product?
I just kind of got fed up with writing code. No, I'm joking.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. No, there was a few things there, but one of them was chasing after new technology all the time. Like these days, I wouldn't be able to write anything because everything changed so quickly. And also, being laid off and thinking really deeply about what is it that I like doing versus what is it that I'm doing. And what I like doing is that part of being that bridge between customers and engineering. So everyone has their story, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I came from the business background. So, one of those things, found my way through the business and analytics and wound up in products. So it takes all kinds of backgrounds.
Yeah, it's such an interesting role because it really does pull so many different pieces together, the business side, the design side, the engineering side. That's one of the reasons I love it, is because you have this pretty wide set of things that you need to master.
But it's funny, I think that you're going to be, I'm not sure if 76 77, like episode 77 or something like that.
77, yeah.
70, maybe around 77
Yeah.
or 78. But I think you're the first one that asked us more personal questions about how we got to product management. Because usually we're the one asking questions. But I think it goes to probably what you're doing, which is a great segue into our next topics about your product manager competency toolkit, and what you need to have in a product manager. How do people, I guess, get into product management that affect that as well? And then how they move in their career. So it's kind of probably very natural for you to ask people how they got to product management and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, I'm always really curious. If you like, I can go into sort of the origin story of that product competency toolkit and why we ended up making it at TripAdvisor. So I joined TripAdvisor in 2012. The company had been part of Expedia for a number of years. It was acquired by Expedia early on and continued to grow. At the time that I joined, something like 300 million people a month were going to TripAdvisor. And as a newly public company that was separate from Expedia, TripAdvisor needed to grow really quickly. And particularly, it needed to grow the product team really quickly. And so we were based in Boston. I had a team of about 7 at the time. We knew every year we needed to bring on a pretty significant number of great PMs. And what we were finding was that it was taking 3 to 6 months to hire people out of industry for consumer product roles based in Boston. And oftentimes, a lot of the experience that they had wasn't necessarily relevant to the way that TripAdvisor works, which was very speed-oriented, very data-oriented. And so they had to go through a lot of training anyway. And so we asked the question of, like, what is a better way to bring great product managers, great product leaders into the organization. And my boss started a program called the Product Rotational Program, where we would hire people without any prior product experience directly out of business school or directly out of undergrad. And then they would go through 2 years of rotation. So they would do 4 6-month rotations, a rotation on, maybe mobile or on social or on back end or front end. So the goal was to give people 360-degree product experience within the course of 2 years and have them graduate from that rotation program from an associate PM role into a full-fledged PM role. And as part of that, we were bringing people into the organization that had no prior product experience. And so we really needed to define what is a great product manager, or how do we think about the competencies that make for a great product manager, so we can create the right rotation program, the right training programs to help people that haven't had product experience in the past become truly great product managers. And so that was the origin of the Product Competency Toolkit. That was something that I put together to help with the process of doing performance reviews and interviews and things of that sort, to have that opinionated perspective on what is a PM and to give people the tools to understand which competencies they need to develop in order to grow into the role.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great story. And did it change since then, or it's about the same?
It's pretty similar. I've changed a couple of things. So there used to be a competency. So the product competency matrix is organized into 4 areas: product execution, customer insight, product strategy, and influencing people. There was, in the product execution area, a competency called quality assurance. And so it was really about the fact that PMs need to own the quality of their product, specifically with the eye towards technical quality. And what I realized over time was, actually, no, product quality is not just QA from a classic kind of engineering perspective. It's actually a matter of just overall product quality. It's quality from a design perspective, a user experience perspective, a business perspective, a logging and instrumentation perspective. So that I've changed from quality assurance to just product quality to capture that broader definition of what it means to deliver a high quality product to end users. And then we've changed stakeholder management from stakeholder management to stakeholder inclusion, to really highlight that ultimately the PM's job is not to manage stakeholders, but really to appropriately include all of the stakeholders into the work that they're doing, so that they can make really sharp decisions, and then also help make sure that everyone understands what's being built in the product, so that the entire organization can rally around the work that the broader product team, the broader product development team is doing.
Right. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's a great point.
We are going to share the link to your website on the description. And the nice thing about it that I like, and I've seen it, done in other places, is that type of, how do you call it, daisy diagram, or
the spider graph.
Graph, exactly, where you can assess people. I've done it in the past with a team assessment and personal assessment and stuff like that. And I actually I recommended your toolkit to other managers of product management to use that because it's so useful. And then I really liked how you mapped the different positions in product management and what areas they need to be strong at or focus on.
Part of that was giving people a really visual understanding of where they're strong and what are some areas that they might want to focus on developing, with the goal being that I think when people think about improving in any career, and in particular in product management, they always think about like, what gaps do I need to close, and don't necessarily really recognize the strengths that they have, and really invest in those strengths. Because ultimately, the thing that makes for someone who's truly stellar at their work is not closing all the gaps and the weaknesses that they have, but is really investing in those strengths. And so one of the reasons I wanted to create something that was more visual, as an analogy I use in the guide, is that each person on a team is kind of like a puzzle piece. And ultimately, no one person is going to excel at everything. People shouldn't aspire to be well-rounded, because then they might just be average at everything. Instead, they should really aspire to be spiky, to be great at a few things, and then work with complementary people. And then you can put together a team based on those puzzle pieces. And then the team can be well-rounded while individuals are really spiky in particular areas. And so the spider graph, the goal there is to really give people the understanding of, what's my shape? What's the thing that I really want to own being great at?
Right.
So that's going to be very cool. I can imagine, the CPO taking all of those graphs and overlaying them on each other, and then see, do I have a full picture here, or do I miss something?
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I've got a course with Reforge called Product Leadership. And as part of that, we use like a mini version of the framework to help CPOs and product leaders do exactly that, to do sort of a talent assessment from a very product-oriented perspective.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing about product, is that you get so many different flavors of people in either your product team or the people you work with from stakeholders. Like, that's the point of like stakeholder inclusion, because they know things about the business that you're not going to know. And so including them in conversations is so vital. So I really like that point that you made about inclusion of stakeholders instead of management of stakeholders. So that's important.
Absolutely. It's really important. And I think one of the hardest things about doing that is it's not a matter of getting to compromise. It's a matter of getting to conviction. Like, it's really important to be able to work to stakeholders to bring a bunch of perspectives together. But instead of diluting those perspectives by just taking the average across them, figure out what's the really like important insight from that perspective, and then make a decision that has really strong conviction, that's really sharp, rather than that's kind of rounded off because you're trying to compromise.
Yeah. They're really going to close up those blind spots. As a product manager, we have those blind spots where if you're not talking to all the people involved, whether it's on the engineering product team, all the different aspects of the business, it can really help you become a better product manager. So it's cool.
Absolutely.
Now, the next question, two questions that I have, I probably know the answer for the first one, but I will ask it anyway. The long debate out there about PO versus PM, product owner versus product manager. Well, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about that debate. How do you define the debate?
Well, there are there are people that their job title or position that they're being hired to is a product owner, and there are people that are hired as product managers. And some organizations have that, and they insist that they need to have product owner and product manager working on in the team or in the organization. Where others, I've seen situations that there is only a PO, and I've seen situations where there is only a PM.
It's a really good question. I think there's a couple of vectors to think about that. One is there is, another debate that people have had is like, is the PM the CEO of the product or not the CEO of the product? And I think, based on thinking about that for a long time, I think actually either answer is true. What's important is not it's not that one answer is right and another answer is wrong. It's that if you're going to go with one model, you have to like build your organization around that model, versus trying to kind of be the best of both worlds and not be really opinionated about what you're trying to do. And so one of the concepts that I talk about in the product leadership program is the idea that one of the decisions that you need to make from an organizational standpoint is the PM in the organization expected to be a facilitator, or are they expected to be an owner? And one of the differences between a facilitator and an owner is how you define accountability. If ultimately you define accountability across the entire broader product team, so engineering, user research, data science, and the PM's job is to be the conductor of that team and get that team of equals to own a decision and be accountable for that decision, then that's great. That can work incredibly well. And in that way, the PM is a facilitator in terms of how they think about ownership. If, on the other hand, you want the PM to be the directly responsible individual to actually own the business outcomes and to solely, have on their performance review reflected whether or not they hit or don't hit the business outcomes, then that's more of an owner role. And it's really important to acknowledge that you are setting that person up to have that level of accountability and not try to get the best of both worlds, which is hold the PM both accountable for getting everyone to agree and also being accountable for the outcome, because then that really, ties the PM's hands. They're not able to make the decision that they feel is the right one because they're trying to get everyone to agree. And so sometimes they're held accountable for consensus. Sometimes they're held accountable for business results. And that's a recipe for a very frustrated product team and not being able to move the needle on outcomes as effectively as possible. Yeah. So similarly, in terms of the distinction between a PO and a PM, I tend to like organizations that focus on a broad PM role that encompasses both the product owner as well as the project manager or program management role. I think it's helpful to have simplicity within the organization, but if you are going to have a separate PM from a PO, you need to define the roles really clearly, particularly in terms of how they're expected to be accountable and how they're expected to collaborate.
Yeah. The reason I thought I knew the answer that you're going to give me is because when I'm looking at the competency toolkit, I see that you divide the 4 quadrant to product manager versus product leader. So product execution and customer insights is in the product manager area, and the product strategy and influencing people is in product leader area. And then when you have the different spider webs for each one of the positions, I don't see a PO over there. I see a PM, senior PM, etc.
So I tend to think I think companies can do it in different ways. I tend to think about this as being a question not of different functional areas, but different levels of accountability for different levels of seniority.
Perfect.
And so early on, the APM, the early PM, they're really accountable for executing on the product, for understanding the customer. And then as they get more senior, as they become a group PM and a director, then they become more accountable for the product strategy, for influencing people. And so they, if you look at the Product Competency Toolkit, it's kind of like a wheel, and you could work clockwise around that wheel as you get more senior, with more emphasis on competencies that are at the bottom of the toolkit or the bottom of the chart when you get more senior, and more focus on the top of the chart when you get more junior. And so that highlights kind of the difference between the PM versus the more senior product leader.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's a great way to see that. I definitely agree with that.
So so the circle becomes more oblong as you grow as a PM, senior PM, director level. You focus maybe more on strategy when you're thinking about it as a circular structure.
It's sort of the weight of the importance of the different competencies
stretches out.
Biases towards the top early in your career and biases towards the bottom later in your career. And one of the interesting outcomes of thinking about it that way is one of the toughest levels to be at for a product manager is a group product manager level or a lead product manager level, where you're actually expected to just be 360. Okay. You're expected to do all of the execution, all of the customer insight, and then have your hands in product strategy and move and motivate the team. And so you don't yet have enough of a team around you that you can kind of pick your head up from some of the product execution tasks and customer insight tasks. And so that's actually a really important inflection point, I think, for people, where there is so much that's expected of the rising product leader, that it's important, I think, to highlight that, to temper expectations, and then also to provide the support so that those people who are rising in seniority have the support that they need to get to that next level, that director VP level.
Absolutely. That's nice. My second question is more about when hiring. I've seen this question in the past, on LinkedIn, mainly in some discussions with other product managers. But when hiring, to look, do you look more for, when hiring product managers or product people, should we look more for, SMEs, so they know they have knowledge of the product and the industry and the users, etc.? Or should we look for someone with the product management skills that they know how to build a product, whether it is, in this industry, on that industry, in this vertical or that vertical?
My bias is towards hiring a generalist who's an athlete across the different product competencies and could pick up a new domain quickly. I think one of the things that has been true about the tech industry is it's just constantly changing. And if you hire someone who is great at learning and who has great product sense and product fundamentals, then they can pick up new domains really quickly. There are some exceptions to that. There's some areas where there's like a depth of product craft and a depth of subject matter expertise where it's really important. I think we're seeing that in AI and ML. I think trust and safety and moderation. I think there's certain industries like healthcare, for example, where it can be helpful to have that depth, potentially in some areas around security and fintech. There's some areas where it's helpful to have the depth. But I think those are the exception rather than the rule. Ideally, you should hire a team of generalists. The other benefit of that as a product leader is then you have people that you can move around. So as the weakest link in the change, as the operative challenge changes, you can move different people to different problems and bring the people to the problem rather than the other way around. So that's my strong preference. And then if you do have areas where you need deep expertise, to be really clear about that, to hire for that, and also to make sure that you're providing career opportunities for those folks. Because, a lot of times these subject matter experts who have really deep experience in a particular area, they might not have as clear a path to grow as a leader because you need them working, doing IC oriented work or managing, a small team on a particular area. And so it's really important to think about what is their career growth path look like so that you can keep them in the organization because they serve such a critical domain specific role.
Okay, cool. So let's maybe talk a bit about Outpace. Can you tell us a bit this journey you're taking people in, and what is it exactly? What is this product about?
Yeah, that sounds great. So around 2020, I left my chief product officer role at Tinder. Throughout my career, I've been at early stage companies. I've also been at big companies. I've enjoyed going back and forth. I think there's really interesting challenges at both stages. I knew I was at a point in my career where I wanted to go earlier stage and probably found something. I just didn't know what I wanted to start. And so I spent about 18 months working with Reforge, which is a company that does cohort-based courses, specifically focused on product folks and growth folks. I helped them launch their product strategy program. I helped them build and launch their product leadership program. And in the course of doing that, I talked with dozens of people that were in the middle of their career. And what I kept hearing was sort of a consistent refrain, which is there's more pressure than ever to be successful. It's harder to know the path that leads to really accelerating your career. There's great ways to learn really good frameworks. There's, like Reforge, there's really good content out there. But the thing that people felt like were missing was having that person in their corner that could really help them take what they were learning and level up based on that. And I had known from my own experience that having a coach can be an incredibly effective way to do that. But oftentimes coaching is really hard to afford. It's really hard to access. And so we built Outpace, or we founded Outpace with the goal of how do we democratize access to really effective professional coaching. And that was the mission that we started the company with. We've about a month and a half ago, we launched our mobile product, which is the latest version of our offering. We've hit on a really interesting learning model that is sort of combines really quick micro learning. So coaching programs that are delivered in a very easy to access, very quick mobile package with the ability to access a one-on-one coach so that people can go through a full learning loop where, in a given week, they're learning something new. There's interactive exercises. So they're putting those things into practice, and then they can get feedback from their coach. This is a way that, we grow up learning by, learning something, by doing some homework, by getting some feedback, and it creates this really important loop. And when people go into the workforce, that way of learning completely falls away. And so with the Outpace product, we're trying to bring that back and give people more access to one-on-one personalized guidance that they need to sort of understand their blind spots, look around the corner, have an ally, get the support that they need to level up.
And is this in product management specifically, or is it any type of business coaching?
So we've built the platform to be agnostic of any function. We have a really cool content management system that's a lot like Snapchat stories or Instagram stories, where we can quickly build really interesting immersive mobile learning experiences. And then we combine that with expertise in a particular area. So the first program that we built is what we think is the most comprehensive coaching program ever built for product leaders. There's 24 sessions that cover everything from, assessing yourself on the Product Competency Toolkit, which I just talked about, how to think about your product strategy, how to make strategic decisions, how to influence stakeholders, how to manage up, how to manage crises. So we have a whole suite of things that we cover. We've got sessions on pretty much all the major leadership topics that a product leader might go through. And then the person can work with their coach to go through those topics and figure out how to put what they're learning into practice in the work that they're doing.
I see. But the platform itself, so in the future, you're planning to do for other type of business coaching, etc. But right now, it's very geared, or the content there is for product managers.
Absolutely. So our first program is called Leveling Up as a Product Leader. Yeah. We're working on a program for engineering leaders. We're working on a program for sales leaders. And then we're working on a program for just high performance leaders in any function.
Nice.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay, so this is absolutely a product that our audience can relate to, and hopefully will try it out and becomes clients.
I was checking out the Level Up as a product leader because I noticed like in the industry, there's a lot of product managers coming in. And so there's a lot of like either the associate level product managers or product managers, maybe there's some senior PMs, but like trying to climb that like ladder to leadership, getting that like, hands-on guidance that you offer here is pretty exciting. So yeah, I was checking it out. So
that sort of mid-career product leader is the exact right person that we're targeting. Like we talked about before, one of the hardest phases for a product person is when you've got a team of 3 or 4, you're growing as a leader, you're expected to be great at execution, you're expected to be great at strategy, you're expected to lead 360 across the organization. And to succeed in that role, it requires this tough combination of both soft skills and hard skills. When you're just getting started, when you're an early product manager, it's really all about the hard skills, and traditional courseware works really, really great for learning hard skills. When you're very senior, you're at a VP level or CPO level, it's almost entirely soft skills, and traditional executive coaching works really well for that. So the thing that we've really tried to innovate on is how do we create a great learning model that helps people learn the hard skills and then figure out how to put them into practice. Because oftentimes where people get tripped up is not, what framework should I use or how should I approach this problem? It's refining their thinking and then motivating the rest of the organization against that, setting goals, communicating, up and across, and really rallying your team around things.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I usually most of the time see people that are trying to get into product management, and it's very hard for them to get into the door without that previous experience. But I've not seen like this type of products or programs that help you like when you're already there, but you want to get to the next level. And I myself felt that I was hitting like a bit of a I don't know, a glass ceiling or whatever you call it in actually moving upward in my career. It was much easier as an engineer.
It's true, because there's not really, I think a lot of companies, they have a lot more engineers. There's a very clear career ladder. There's very clear milestones that you need to hit on that ladder. For product teams, once you get to a certain level, in a lot of companies, it gets murky about what you need to do to get to the next level. And sometimes it's not even a matter of your capability. It might just be that there's an opportunity gap. There may not be more senior opportunities. And then it's an important question of like, should I be looking at my next company so that I can get that opportunity that I'm looking for?
And many times people do have to move to other companies to go up the ladder.
Yeah.
In product, which is unfortunate, I think.
Yeah.
I think so as well. And then that introduces a whole set of challenges around learning the product culture at that company, really nailing that first 90 days.
You have to start over every time.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really tricky.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so what's the one most important tip you might want to give someone that is looking to go up the ladder in the product management career?
Yeah, this is an interesting question. I think one of the things I learned over the years is that in one way, the expectation of a year one PM and a Fortune 500 CEO are the same. And that is both the Fortune 500 CEO and the year one PM are expected to set and hit goals, usually on a quarterly basis, but the time frame doesn't matter. The idea that you set a meaningful goal for the business, you commit to it, you give guidance that you're going to achieve it, and you achieve it 3 months later, 6 months later, is incredibly important at all levels within the organization. And one thing I learned as I got more senior is that executive leadership just instinctively goes to the people that they intuitively believe have a track record of setting and hitting meaningful goals. And so for someone who is at this critical point within the middle of their career, my guidance would be to understand the strategy really well. So how does the company define success? And then based on that definition of success, set goals for your team that are aggressive but achievable, that move the ball forward on that definition of success. And if you start to do that, and each quarter, your boss, your boss's boss, everyone within the company can count on you to do what you say that you're going to do, and also to add value to the business, then over time, opportunities will accrue to you, because just instinctively, executive leaders will want to come to you and give you more responsibility, because they know that they can trust that given that responsibility, you'll make the most out of the resources given, and that you'll consistently deliver impact.
I love that. It really gives you something to focus on as well. So as a personal goal and something that could be achievable, the only caveat that I might wonder is I've been in situations that there was no strategy, or there was no top-down strategy that helped me as a product manager really align with my goals and what I should achieve and how my position is going to be successful. And I don't think this is unique. I think that a lot of companies are like that, especially feature factories, and where there is very strong people that have strong opinions and they don't really listen to the product people, that there isn't a strategy. And then what would you do then? Move to the next company?
You could move to the next company. I think if you're in a company that is like sort of persistently in a crisis of strategy, at some point that's going to catch up to the company. But this idea that there's strategic gaps, that it's not always clear what the strategy should be, happens at even the most successful companies. And so there's two pieces of advice that I would offer, one of which is specifically focused on building a reputation from a career standpoint, and the second one, which is focused on filling that strategic gap. So in terms of, if there's no strategy at all, so you don't know what's going to move value for the business or what's going to create value for the business, and so you don't know what to set goals around, start asking the question to your boss and to other leaders within the company, what are you worried about? What's keeping you up at night? What are the things that you're focused on? And so that combination of questions can help you understand how they see the world. And ultimately, the things that they might be worried about may be pretty tactical. It may be, I'm really worried about whether or not we hit the date for this particular feature launch. And then the thing that you could do is commit to that date and make sure that the team hits it. Or, kick off a conversation about how that date isn't realistic, but there's some subset of functionality that you can achieve. And so by just understanding what's top of mind for folks, what they're worried about, what they're focused on, it gives you an opportunity to align the work that you're doing with those top of mind concerns. And initially, even if those top of mind concerns are tactical and you show the ability to get those tactical things done, you'll eventually get entrusted with more strategic work. And then the second thing is oftentimes PMs get asked to create a strategy for something without any sort of context. And so the challenging thing about product is actually where the rubber meets the road on strategy. And so it might be that a company operating without a strategy can get by in lots of different areas. But then when it comes to making a decision about the product, it's really hard to make that decision because there's no context within which you're operating on. And so instinctively, a PM might say, I'm going to ask my boss, what's our strategy? Or I'm going to ask the CEO, what's our strategy in this area? I'm trying to decide, should this button go here or there? And I need a little bit of guidance. Those conversations almost never go well, because if leadership hasn't articulated the strategy before that moment, the chances of you asking the question and they thinking, oh yeah, we haven't actually articulated our strategy, let me give you this full formed answer, is really rare. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Instead, what a PM could do is they can say, I don't have the strategic context that I need, but I'm going to make some assumptions. So here are the 1 to 3 different strategic assumptions that I'm making. So I'm assuming that our strategy is this. And then based on that set of assumptions, here's what I think the right answer is for the product. And so that clears that roadblock. It allows you to put together a coherent, a strong product strategy, a strong product direction without having to get kind of a full-fledged strategy from the leadership organization. And then when you present that direction, it actually will enable you to have a really interesting conversation, because it might be that leadership says, yeah, your assumptions are exactly right, but we have some concerns about this particular direction, which is great. Then you know what context you're operating in. Or it might be that leadership says, actually, no, these don't seem like the right assumptions. I think you're operating off the wrong playbook. And then you can have this really interesting, more constrained conversation about what the strategy should be, what assumptions your leadership is operating off of. So that's a really great way to move the ball forward, even when you're in a situation where you don't have that guidance of that strategic context.
It's funny, when you were talking about that, both Matt and I were laughing, because I think that we both have been in these situations in the past.
That pretty much answers one of the questions I had.
I don't think it's foreign to anyone.
That's so important.
Unfortunately, but this is the case in many places.
Strategy is so hard. It's either the vision of the company, the business strategy, the product strategy, the competitive strategy, understanding them where you are today and where you want to be tomorrow. And you really have to know like where you sit in the world, where your product sits in the world, who your customers are. So it really takes in all these ingredients, and that can be really difficult sometimes, especially if you're new to a company or you're new to a space you're working in, like the AI. That's obviously something big now, and a lot of companies are coming out with this movement towards AI. And so that kind of stuff, like trying to understand, like, is this something we need to be working in? And how is our customers going to perceive this? Is leadership, interested in this? So like, just takes so much to get there. So that's why strategy is so important when it comes to this.
I totally agree. It's incredibly important. I think oftentimes ambitious goals get substituted for strategy. So the company will say, our strategy is to increase revenue by 20% or 30%. But then when you have that ambitious goal, that doesn't give you any guidance on a question like, is ChatGPT, is what's happening with AI important for our business or not? And in some cases it might be, and in some cases it might not be. And so strategy is much less about, what are the what are the big audacious goals that you're trying to hit, and much more about understanding your customer, understanding your competitors, understanding your position in the market, understanding what unique position your company has, and then building a really rigorously logical plan for how you're going to win given that landscape.
Awesome. No, that was very enlightening and great discussion. I love that. Exceeded my expectations. No, I had very high expectations, and it was
I like to set low expectations.
I had actually high expectations, and you didn't. You delivered. So thank you so much for that, Ravi. I really appreciate that. Where can people reach out to you?
So people can reach out on my blog. So it's just ravi-meta.com. They can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty accessible. So feel free to connect with me there.
Perfect.
Wonderful. Well, Ravi, thanks so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure to have you. Moshe, always a pleasure. And thank you to all the listeners, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you, Matt and Moshe. It's been great to be here.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Take care.
Thank you to all the listeners. We really appreciate the feedback and support. Please leave us a review to help others find the show on Apple or Spotify or anywhere else you're listening to the show.